Hey everybody, I know recently I posted videos about my top 20 favorite animated movies of all time. Now we've come to the final one. I know this one took a little bit longer to make, but I have a busy schedule. Don't worry, I have this video out, as you see right now, and I can go ahead and talk about my top 5 favorite animated movies of all time. Either way, let's start off with number 5, which was surprisingly a tie, but an appropriate tie. It is Kung Fu Panda 1 and Kung Fu Panda 2. Why I put these movies together is because I feel like it is a sequential story. I feel like Kung Fu Panda 2 wouldn't have existed without Kung Fu Panda 1, and it all leads up to this big hero's journey. And the story is very good in crafting this hero's journey in the same vein as Star Wars or Avatar: The Last Airbender. Poe, the character, as played by Jack Black, is one of those rare times, like Robin Williams as a genie, where you have seen this character and the animation supports the character as well as the voice acting, and it fits perfectly. And I know Jack Black gets casted into films where you're like, Jack Black is this, Jack Black is Gulliver in Gulliver's Travels. It's like, he's just going to be phoning it in just to make a quick buck. But I feel like there's something genuine about this. Like, they casted him based on his big, epic folk tale things you hear in Tenacious D, and it fits this folk character and Chinese lore really well. Also, let me address the sheer fact that the titles of these movies are freaking stupid. Kung Fu Panda sounds just like a title that DreamWorks would come up with, like Shark Tale, or B-Movie, or Ants with a Z. But, you know, it works. Surprisingly, it works really well. It's one of my favorite animated movies. It has this great epic feel to it. And I hate having to say that word, but there is a lot of epicness in this movie. Number 4 is one of the 2 Pixar movies that I have on my list, The Incredibles. I was actually going to wear my Mr. Incredible shirt today, but it's in the wash. What I love about The Incredibles is that it is genuinely a superhero movie. It focuses more on the superhero elements more than the family film elements that most animated movies do anyways. And it shows you what you can do in animation that you can't do in live action, which is why, to me, a lot of the strengths in this movie outweigh the strengths for most superhero movies. I love how it takes the trope that most Disney films do, which is if you believe in yourself and you try really hard, you can be the good guy or you can come out on top. Whereas it takes that trope and has a more cynical edge to it. Whereas the character that does really try hard to do what he wants, he builds these great tools, ends up becoming the villain in the film, which is interesting when you look at that trope in movies like Dumbo, which is also one of my favorite movies, and compared to this, and it's like, wow, that's kind of a reverse message going on over there. But regardless of that, The Incredibles is an amazing film, one of the best superhero movies out there. You definitely have to check it out if you want to get your superhero fix. The other Pixar movie that I have on my list is Toy Story, and the big irony is that I don't have it tied with Toy Story 2 or Toy Story 3 because unlike Kung Fu Panda, I feel like the strengths in Toy Story, the first movie, outweigh everything else that's good about Toy Story 2 or 3, which might seem like a controversial opinion for people because to them, Toy Story 2 is the best movie in the franchise, which, don't get me wrong, is a great movie, but I feel like without Toy Story 2, you have to have Toy Story. And a lot of the great things about Toy Story last in the franchise. Toy Story is one of the first computer animated films. For most people, that seems like, you know, an interesting little fact, tidbit, but you have to acknowledge that this is a big cultural event. For most people, computer animation was a special effect, or it gave people this impression that you can't create, you know, the same warmth and feeling of a hand-drawn film. But even in its early stages, and as rudimentary as the film looks, even to today's standards, it still lasts with great characters, great dialogue, and good music by Randy Newman. I know, Randy Newman music. He just sings about everything he sees. But to me, the film works really well, and it still holds up today. A lot of memorable lines, memorable cast. Good Lord, Tom Hanks and Tim Allen. I was actually thinking right now because Bill Millie Crystal was actually supposed to play Buzz Lightyear, and how that film would have turned out, nobody would know. But regardless of that, Toy Story is one of the best animated movies. Let us go to number 3, Beauty and the Beast. To me, this is where a lot of great elements about Disney come together in the 90s. Great characters. I love Belle, I love Beast, and I love the way they're animated. You can see the personality coming out of their characters. It's some of the best character animation you've ever seen. The design of the film, I love the what period are we going for? Gothic period? Renaissance type, use the big flying buttresses and the castles and the sculptures and the castles, very Renaissance-esque, and I just love the tone of the film, and this is one of the best examples where the soundtrack is one of the best things that illustrates how good the film is. This film has such a great soundtrack. The music supports the film in such a great way that, you know, it just shows you what music can do for visuals, and both of those put together, it's like Fantasia, where the music really accentuates the animation and the animation accentuates the music. Otherwise, great story, great characters. I've said it all already, but that music, damn, that music is so good. Especially that bit that sounds like Aquarium by Camille Saint-Saëns. Either way, love this movie. Now we go on to number 1. This might strike some controversy with some people. For others, it just makes sense. To me, the best animated movie of all time is Bambi. For me, Bambi, it just takes all the qualities from the other movies that I mentioned on my list and, you know, it takes the best things about those films and puts it into this film. I watched Bambi even today, and there's such great artistry, good characters that you remember, Thumper, Flower, Bambi. It's just a good movie. And I know it's a coming-of-age story. You have Bambi as this character. He's young, he's innocent, kind of like Dumbo. When you follow this character, crap happens to him, but you still follow along with him. The artistry in this film, I love the textures. Either way, to me, this is the one time where they take something, they focus on don't get me wrong, there's realism in this film, and they do focus on realism when it comes to these characters. You get a sense that they're trying to not necessarily mimic realism, but use it as a reference to tell its own story. Take something that is realistic, like the anatomy of a deer, the anatomy of forest animals, and not necessarily mimic it beat by beat like most computer animated films these days. Don't get me wrong. You can take a photograph of something and say, yes, there it is. But actually interpreting, and that's the interpretation and the value you give it is what makes it art. And to me, there's a lot of aspects they take from realism with these characters and put it into this movie, into these characters. And you can see they take something from realism but still incorporate a fantastical element to it. Either way, I think that's the direction most computer animation is going these days. I feel like, yeah, just like the photograph, the advent of the photograph, yes, you can take a picture of something and do what a painter did. But now the painter realizes they've got to work with that, and the people making photographs realize they can make an art out of photography. And I feel like computer animation is hitting that peak where motion capture isn't just about capturing the realism of a character. You can have animators incorporate their interpretation out of the data they get from facial recognition and all that fun jazz. Either way, Bambi seems like that film that, you know, animators today can look at, like, what did these animators do by interpreting life? They didn't necessarily take life, and put it into, you know, take what they got from photos and just draw on top of it. They interpreted it with their minds and their creativity to make something new and creative and just good looking. Either way, it's a good looking film. I want to get this film on Blu-ray. Bambi still holds up. One of my favorite animated films. And I don't think I have anything else. I think I covered everything else I love about Bambi. Either way, oh yeah, how could I forget? Mother dying, most iconic scene in film history, or one of the most iconic scenes in film history. How could I forget about that? Either way, again, enough of me gushing. Bambi is one of my favorite animated films of all time. So, if you like this list, I can't believe I finished making it. Thank you for your support and helping me, you know, get the motivation to finish this list. Either way, if you have any comments, let me know in the comments below. You can like the channel, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and I hope to make more videos in October. I have something special planned in October. Either way, I hope you have a lovely day or night.